NATALIE, where we take a closer look at the internet's most viral moments, movements, and messages, and really unpack and analyze what they actually mean in real life. I'm your host, Natalie De Silva, a third-year information technology and informatics and journalism and media major with a minor in DCIM at Rutgers University. I know, a mouthful, but I love to say it all and have people compliment me on being so smart. Whatever. Back to the main point. Today we're diving into a hashtag that seems pretty simple on the surface, but way more complex once you start really looking deeper into it. We're talking about the hashtag #MyBodyMyChoice. These 4 words have been everywhere, from protest signs at rallies to tweets, TikToks, and discussions in whether it be one of your group chats with your friends or the dinner table with family at certain holidays. It's truly just worldwide. For years, we've known it to be tied to the fight for women's reproductive rights. But after some certain events, it's definitely derailed off its main track and taken multiple new paths, especially during the COVID pandemic, when people who opposed to follow mask mandates and vaccine requirements started to use it too. So today, we're discussing some big topics like how does the hashtag change in meaning, depending on who's using it? What happens when slogans from one movement get picked up by another with very different values? Can this one phrase really represent 2 completely opposite causes? To do so, we're going to look at a handful of tweets, TikToks, news articles, and even academic studies to break it all down. We'll also hear from a guest who's not an expert, just someone who's casually online like the rest of us, trying to make sense of the chaos that is the internet. So grab a snack, get comfy, or if you're actually being productive while listening, I guess that works too. You know what? Let's just get into it. Let's start at the beginning. The phrase itself. My body, my choice. It's been used by reproductive rights activists for many years, decades even. It's simple, it's powerful, and it speaks to the main idea that's being presented: bodily autonomy, meaning the right to make decisions about your own body without any interference from the government, strangers, or just anyone trying to poke into your life. Organizations like Amnesty International use this phrase as part of their campaign, claiming that it's a human right. They believe, and I quote, "Whoever you are, wherever you live, you have the right to make these choices without fear, violence, or discrimination," end quote. It's more than just a slogan, it's almost a demand for freedom. One's safety, health-wise, and control. It's what people so strongly chant at rallies, when they print on shirts, stickers, posters, what they share on social media, when policies threaten that autonomy, to spread the word and really gain awareness because they believe it to be important to have these choices. During the protests over the laws that restrict abortion access, you'll see these signs scattered throughout the sea of people. It's a phrase that's deep and full of emotion for a lot of people, especially anyone who owns a female reproductive organ, being women, trans people, and anyone whose rights to make medical decisions have been debated within the government. And then everything changed once the pandemic hit. In 2020 and 2021, as all the mask mandates and vaccine requirements rolled out, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, a new group of people started using the hashtag #MyBodyMyChoice. But this time, it wasn't about abortion. It was about refusing to wear masks and get the vaccines. Shocker, right? Haha, not really. So, all of a sudden, people who have never been part of the reproductive rights movement and are most likely opposed to it were using the exact same slogan to argue for their right to reject a public health policy. Oh, the irony. Anyways, Michelle Goldberg, writing in the New York Times, captured the irony of this switch. Quote, feminists have always known that if men, or at any rate cis men, could get pregnant, abortion would be a non-issue. The furious conservative reaction to COVID mitigation measures demonstrates this is more than any hypothetical ever could. Many on the right, we can now see, believe it's tyranny to be told to put something they don't want on or in their bodies in order to save lives. End quote. This switch of energy towards the slogan sparked confusion amongst many, and even some backlash. Some people saw it as a powerful example of freedom of speech being applied across the board, while others saw it as super disrespectful and ignorant. Which brings us back to one of the key questions. Can a phrase originally meant for one cause be fairly reused for another one? This idea of slogans being borrowed or even stolen is something that's been brought to scholars' attention as well, and leading them to also feel the need to have to dig deeper into this issue. 2024, researcher named Tashina Blum published a paper in the journal Memory Studies called My Body, My Choice, the Hostile Appropriation of Feminist Cultural Memory in American Anti-Vaccine Movements. I know. The title is a mouthful, but it makes a powerful point, and I want to give full credit where credit is due. Blum writes points such as, quote, the implicit cultural memory of a longer history of feminist struggle is mobilized in the hostile appropriation of my body, my choice by political detractors, end quote. Or even, quote, the uptake of the slogan is hostile in that it tends to attack the reproductive rights movement by undermining. Alright. I would read all of this, but what would I really be achieving? I know I'm starting to bore you. It's all going in one ear, not the other. Let me just simplify it for you guys. So, I'll dumb it down. Basically, some people are using the phrase, my body, my choice, in a way that goes against its original meaning in feminist movements. This kind of use tries to weaken the message and long history behind it. Feminists have used the slogan for over 50 years to fight for reproductive rights. So when it's taken and used for another cause, especially one that opposes those rights, it damages the slogan's message and can make people question the feminist movement's truth and goals. This switch can make it can even lead to serious political consequences in the real world and have these bills passed that really affect women's decisions on bodily autonomy. This so-called hostile appropriation, meaning not just borrowing the phrase, but using it in a way that just outright ruins its original meaning, is causing confusion. People start questioning what the phrase even means anymore and who it even belongs to. It's like if people started using the hashtag #MeToo to protest how they all got screwed over by the government in some way. You think, wait, that's not what this is about. And yet, on social media, everything moves fast, so people just grab onto whatever slogan fits their vibe, their brand, their anger, whether it makes sense or not. These hashtags even end up becoming almost a battleground. Like, things start getting really ugly. People getting attacked for their opinions, and so on. For example, one TikTok I saw while researching showed a video of a woman at a My Body, My Choice protest being called ugly. And they even told her she shouldn't even be able to reproduce. Another showed a man getting mocked for stuttering. A full-on involuntary disability, by the way. during an interview about his support for reproductive rights. That's just that's not just disagreeing with their opinions. That's quite literally bullying. There's so many different ways to disagree with someone while staying respectful. Even on Twitter, well, now X, people often post their support or stories under the hashtag and get flooded with hate. Others use the hashtag sarcastically or to troll and stir the pot. So while hashtags like my body, my choice most of the time do create powerful spaces for these meaningful connections, they can also become spaces of harm. We, as a society, yes, we, all of us, need just a little bit more respect and kindness to be a lot more open minded online. Well, not just online, but you get the point. Anywhere and everywhere. How about the real life consequences of these debates? It's easy to see hashtags and viral tweets and forget that behind them are real people with real emotions and real experiences. When we talk about the appropriation of these slogans, like the hashtag my body, my choice, we're not just arguing semantics. We're talking about people's real lives and what they've gone through. For example, one woman, Jen Horsberg, posted on X about her terrifying miscarriage experience, reminding people what's truly at stake. Quote, I bled out during a miscarriage, and a DNC saved my life. Criminalizing abortion won't stop abortions, it'll stop safe ones, and we will die. Stop policing our bodies. Hashtag abortion rights, hashtag my body, my choice. End quote. Her words hit hard. They're not just theoretical, they are literal. This isn't just about politics, it's about survival and women's safety and health. And after the fall of Roe v. Wade, the emotional impact of the decision was all over timelines across all social media platforms. Again, on X, another user shared, quote, I'm seriously struggling to tweet much since hearing about hashtag Roe v. Wade. I'm devastated, end quote. These posts show how deeply personal and painful that these losses are. They're not just another court decision, they're life-changing events slash policies. Even celebrities who speak out on the topic aren't safe from backlash. Pop star HALSEY got some pretty crazy reactions when she spoke up for abortion rights during one of her concerts. The response? People flat out walked out. One tweet read, quote, the amount of people who just walked out of the Halsey concert after Nightmare when she spoke about abortion was sickening. Fight for what is right. Hashtag abortion rights are human rights. Hashtag my body, my choice at Halsey. End quote. Moments like this show the divide. Speaking up can cost you fans, followers, and even safety. But staying silent also has its own cost, risking a bunch of lives as well. To make this conversation feel more focused on one's everyday experience, I didn't just want to talk to people in the academic or activist space. I wanted to hear from someone who's also just living online. Someone who sees this stuff pop up on their feed, just like most of us do. So I sat down with one of my close friends, Veronica Paluca, a fellow college student here at Rutgers, and obviously a social media user, to get her honest take on how the hashtag my body my choice is being used and even misused today. Alright, so this interview was recorded on Zoom, so the audio is a little bit different, so I apologize for that. But anyway, here it is. Um, alright, Veronica, give us a little introduction. Tell us about yourself.
Okay, so I go to Rutgers and I'm a junior. I'm studying English and cinema studies, and I'm excited to be interviewed today.
Okay, so when you see the hashtag my body, my choice on your social media feed, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Um, I guess for me and for probably a lot of people, it's always been about abortion rights. Like it's a obviously a hashtag that's been used on the internet, and that's pretty much the connection that I've known for it. Like women having control over their reproductive decisions. I'd say it's a pretty emotional and political movement, but it's also pretty personal. Um, when I see that phrase, I also think about like protests when people are protesting for, their right to go to places like Planned Parenthood. Um, yeah, that's like the image that comes to my mind.
Yeah, same. So when people started using it during the pandemic for stuff like mask and vaccine protests, did you notice that happening?
Yeah, I did. I definitely think that was a pretty weird like reversal of the meaning of that hashtag. I remember seeing like posts on social media from like older and like politically questionable family members using the quote in like all caps with something along the lines of like no masks, no mandates. It really threw me off at first. I thought it was maybe like something sarcastic or like they're trying to make a joke of the situation, but then I realized like no, like they're serious about this. Um, and yeah, I mean it obviously feels super disconnected from the original phrase and what it was meant to stand for, and it just really didn't sit right with me.
How did that make you feel?
I mean, I mostly just felt like it was disrespectful, like, and even I felt disrespected in a way. Um, I know that people are obviously allowed to express themselves, but they were taking a message that was for a long time tied to, decades of women and feminist struggle and using it for something completely different. It felt like they were obviously just making fun of it. Um, like they were just using it as like a catchy phrase when it's not, and it holds a lot of weight for so many people. Um, and when it gets used in like a totally different context, it's obviously watering down the original meaning, especially when it's like used by people who weren't part of that original movement and probably never supported it at all.
So, do you think it's okay for both groups, the pro-choice activists and the anti-mandate protesters, to use the same slogan?
Um, I mean, obviously it's complicated. Like technically anyone can use it. Like it's just like a hashtag, but I think the intent behind it really matters because if the original phrase and slogan was used for protecting, bodily autonomy for in a deeply like personal and like a life or death kind of way, and now someone's using it to protest wearing a mask at Target, I don't know, it feels like a pretty unequal argument. Like one is about your own body, and then the other one is about how pretty much a choice that's also impacting other people, people around you. It's really not just a personal thing. And yeah, that difference gets ignored when you're using the same phrase for both of those ideas.
That is such a good point. So, do you think the hashtag starts to lose meaning when it's used like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously losing its original meaning, and then it's being used for almost everything and anything. Like it's just not, it's almost like it doesn't stand for anything anymore. It kind of turns into like this empty shell of a phrase that people can just throw around to make a point, even if it's not the right one. And that obviously sucks because there are people who have, physically marched and protested and cried under that slogan, and seeing it get like repurposed by people who, probably don't even believe in reproductive rights just feels wrong.
Right. Hashtags can be powerful, but they're fragile too. They need consistency to keep that meaning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think it's easy to forget that when you're just reposting or reacting online. Like, I've been guilty of that too, like posting something because it sounded catchy or bold without really thinking about like where it came from. But now I think I definitely try to be more mindful because words, carry significance and history, especially if it's like a slogan or phrase that's tied to a movement. It's not just about your right to post, it's about respecting people that are behind a movement.
I love that. I feel like you really summed up how social media can oversimplify pretty complex movements into trendy phrases and how that can hurt more than help even. Any last thoughts for the people listening?
Um, I guess my last thoughts were just for people to be more thoughtful when you're using a hashtag that's or a phrase that's tied to a cause. You should really ask yourself if it's important to your cause, and even if you disagree with it, you shouldn't like adopt it and make it something else to make your point louder. I think there are other ways to express yourself without taking away and stepping on the work and pain of others.
Preach. Thanks so much for talking to me, Veronica. Hope to have you back on the podcast again.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, we've officially reached the end of this episode of Control Plus Me with Natalie, and I just want to take a moment to reflect everything that's been discussed so far. We started off with a simple question. Can a hashtag like my body, my choice really stand for multiple and completely different things depending on who's using it? After everything we've talked about, the origin of the phrase, how it's been used in both reproductive rights and anti mask vaccine mandate movements, its academic insight, the online backlash, and even Veronica's personal thoughts, it's clear that the answer isn't really all that simple. Here's what I've personally taken away from this. Hashtags are powerful, but they're also very fragile. They can build communities, empower people, and spread awareness in seconds. But once they're out there, they don't really belong to a singular group or cause anymore. And the internet doesn't really have to ask for permission to remix things either. Nor do they, like, yeah, they just don't really have to. But that's the beauty of it, the beauty and the chaos of the internet. But just because you can use a slogan doesn't always mean you should. When a phrase is tied to people's real struggles, rooted in decades of activism and lived experience, it deserves respect. That doesn't mean you can't ever relate to it or use it differently, but it does mean you should be thoughtful. Like Veronica said, if you're using a hashtag that's tied to a cause, first ask yourself if it's really your cause. So, what should we do moving forward? We should listen, we should learn, we should stay curious, and we should try to understand where messages come from before reposting or reusing, remixing them. We should remember that behind every hashtag is a story, sometimes even a whole movement, a whole powerful movement. Anyways, I'm rambling now. Thanks so much for sticking with me today and for being open to exploring the messy, complicated, and powerful world of digital activism. Until next time, I'm Natalie, and this has been Control Plus Me.